This week's Parsha of Beshalach, the Torah tells us that Paro sent Klal Yisrael, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu took them on a circuitous route. Vayasev Elokim es ha'om derech hamidbar Yam Suf, Hamushim alu b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. And then the Torah records the following pasuk. In pasuk Yutes, Perek Yud Gimel, Vayikach Moshe es atzmos Yosef imo. If you recall, there was a promise that was made to Yosef. This promise was made to Yosef at the end of Parshat Vayechi. There the Torah indicates Yosef certainly was concerned about Chas v'Shalom not remaining in Egypt, that his body should not be interred in Mitzrayim, similar to what we encountered at the beginning of the Parsha, when Yaakov Avinu requested as well, Al no tikbareni b'Mitzrayim. Rashi quotes from Chazal a number of reasons for the objection on the part of Yaakov of remaining in Mitzrayim. He certainly wanted to be buried in Eretz Yisrael, in Kever Avos, and similarly Yosef made a similar request. And the Torah records that request over here in the beginning of Beshalach. In Pasuk Yutes, the Torah says, Vayikach Moshe es atzmos Yosef imo. Moshe Rabbeinu took with him the atzmos of Yosef, ki ashbea ishbia, as b'nei Yisrael emor. Yosef had administered a shvua. The shvua said, Pakod yivkod elokim eschem, that's the password, according to Chazal, that Hashem will remember us. But furthermore, Yosef made a personal request. Va'alisem es atzmosai mizeh itchem. And that my bones should also accompany you to Eretz Yisrael. So what's very striking, and this diuk I heard from my Rabbi, Harav Soloveitchik, Zechem Devracha, on a number of different occasions. Here the Torah in Beshalach, when it records the request of Yosef, it mentions Va'alisem es atzmosai mizeh itchem. The Torah adds the word itchem. If you look for a moment, in the end of Parshat Vayechi, you'll notice that is where the source of the request comes from, and there the Torah tells us the following language. It's at the end of Parshat Vayechi. The Torah says very clearly in Perek Nun, Pasuk Chavdalet, Vayom Yosef Alechav Anochi Meis. Yosef says to his brothers, I'm going to die. Ve'elokim pakod yivkod eschem. Hashem is going to remember you. Again, the password. Ve'elo eschem el haaretz hazos. He's going to bring you el haaretz asher nishba li'Avraham li'Yitzchak li'Yaakov, to the land that he swore to give to Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Vayashba Yosef es bnei Yisrael emor. Yosef administered a shvua. Pakod yivkod elokim eschem v'alisem es atzmosai mizeh. Again, the same language that's found in Parshat Beshalach that we just read. However, notice one word is missing. The last word, itchem. Yosef does not mention a word by the language of itchem. And so Soloveitchik indicated the basis of the distinction is the following. Yosef, as we know, was the Mishnah Melech Mitzrayim. Yosef had saved and salvaged the Egyptian economy. Yosef had lived in Egypt for many, many years. And even though one would have expected that Yosef would have integrated and acclimated and acculturated, but we know what Chazal say by Yosef HaTzadik, that Yosef hoya b'Mitzrayim, and Chazal actually comment on that in the beginning of the Parsha. Namely, the Torah says very clearly in the beginning of Parshat Vayechi, Perek Mem Zayin Pasuk Chavches, Vayechi Yaakov Be'eretz Mitzrayim Shvayas Reishona, and the Torah speaks about the fact that Yaakov called Yosef and made the request he should be buried in Eretz Yisrael, Al no sigrenim Mitzrayim. And the end of Parshat Vayechi, the Torah tells us what happened. The Torah speaks about the death of Yosef, the death of the brothers, but the Torah also mentions that during that period of time, Yosef hoya b'Mitzrayim, Rashi quotes from Chazal, who Yosef Hu b'tzidkuso b'tchilasa gatzofo. Yosef had not, despite the fact he was in Egypt, despite the fact he was elevated to a position as Mishnah Melech Mitzrayim, Yosef had not changed, had not altered his hashkafas olam, his veltshang, one iota. He was committed to Klal Yisrael, to Ribbonu Shel Olam, 1,000%. And so now, this is clearly seen by virtue of the fact that Yosef follows in the footsteps of his father, Al no tikbreni mitzvayim, and Yosef requests that he should be buried in Eretz Yisrael as well. However, certainly Yosef could not publicly, while he's the Mishnah Melech Mitzrayim, indicate where his true feelings lay. Yosef certainly was a proud Jew, very much connected to Eretz Yisrael. Chazal comment, the Gemara in Makis, Yosef shahoida ba'artzo, nikva ba'artzo. Yosef had no difficulty identifying himself as an Ivri, in contrast to Moshe Rabbeinu, where in the beginning of Sefer Shmos, the Torah tells us, Ish mitzvah yitzilanu b'yad haroyim, v'gam daloi dalo lanu v'yashk es hatzon. When the daughters of Yisro came to the area where the flock had to be, in effect, given to drink, and there Moshe Rabbeinu somehow is identified as Ish Mitzri. That's how they see him. Hitzilanu miyad haroyim. Mashenk and Yosef, he's the Ish Ivri par excellence. So Yosef shahid ba'artzo, nikva ba'artzo, and therefore Yosef indicates that va'alisim es atzmos mizeh. But Yosef cannot openly reveal that because it would be, in effect, traitorous and treacherous to Paro. Here is the Mishnah Melech Mitzrayim, and therefore the word Itchem is eliminated. But Moshe Rabbeinu records in Parshat Beshalach Yosef's request. There the Torah adds one word, Itchem, indicating that Yosef strongly felt he was a proud Jew. He knew where his roots, where his sharashim were, anchored in Eretz Yisrael, and therefore Yosef indicates that by the language of Itchem, and Moshe Rabbeinu here, and the Torah records the word Itchem, indicating even though Yosef is the Mishnah Melech Mitzrayim, we know exactly where your sharashim are, where you're rooted, to which land you are connected, where is your destiny, and all that is indicated by the word Itchem. Now, Salvation mentioned in that context a story about the Baron Edmund Rothschild, who was a well-known French citizen and a great philanthropist to the country. He certainly was responsible for giving tremendous amounts of charity, and his philanthropic beneficence was clearly seen throughout France. And at his funeral, de Gaulle wanted to have a state funeral and to really give him the kind of cover that he deserved and to commend him for all his philanthropy. And he left a last will and testament, and in that last will and testament he indicated he wanted to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. And de Gaulle, the Prime Minister, was furious. I thought you were a French citizen, committed, loyal. And I see really that dual loyalty, their real loyalty, is to Eretz Yisrael, and the truth is that's where his loyalty really was, and that's where the loyalty of a Jew should really be. Even the Jew may be living in Golus, outside of Eretz Yisrael, in a foreign country, but ultimately every Jew knows that his real home is in Eretz Yisrael, his real sharashim, where he's really anchored. That's the Eretz Asher Eini Hashem Elokecha Ba, and that was indicated by Moshe Rabbeinu in Parshat Beshalach, using the language of Va'alisim es atzmosai mizeh itchem. Yosef himself could not use that term because it would smack of treachery on his part. It would look like he's a traitor, betraying the country as Mishnah Melech Mitzrayim. But Moshe, the secret comes out. His real commitment was with Klal Yisrael, in Eretz Yisrael, and that's how a Jew should feel, as Yosef felt. And since Hoda B'Artzo, Nikba B'Artzo, and all that is embedded in one word, the word Itchem.